Legend says that Hercules swept Cerberus right off his feet and effortlessly set him down softly as a songbird. Atlas kept the world upon his back and every day wondered whether he could stand it any longer. And TheTaraReade came out to say the man they tried to label the messiah of morality was really just another rapist. And I don't intend to hesitate when asked who was the stronger. Tara, like Assange, knew that carrying the truth would be the hardest labor. Tara knew that her assailant wasn't gonna make us any safer. And knew he's just the type of man to hand a decent foreign leader US printed walking papers. And knew he'd be relentless and aggressive in the war he'd wage upon her very character. That his attempts to weaken and degrade and embarrass her would be her only compensation. But I strongly doubt that anyone could ever have foreseen the stream of hate that came from quote-unquote progressives and the self-styled titans of survivor advocation. So if you really think there's something to be gained out of sharing your pain with the world, you are sorely mistaken. The Biden team just drug their feet addressing Tara's allegations. Until they had a decent list of smears, then they aired them out on every station. And it turns out no one wants to hear the truth of who they praised as being worthy of such bloated liberal celebration. That no one wants to really know the person they've so valiantly defended, even when it meant they had to gloat and shit all over someone braver than they'd be if given the occasion. Now cue the faceless comment squad invasion. Cue those fuckers crawling out the woodwork to come analyze the way you wore your hair and what you wear. Like your appearance waives your rights, or that somehow you're the reason for your situation. Somehow they've decided you should bear responsibility for what such monstrous men insist on doing. Somehow they're deluded by the empty, hypocritical, and useless fucking platitudes that bastard keeps on spewing. And I think it's very telling that the best of their excuses when they try to come and justify our president's abuses is a hearty butt Trump. In which case I'll remind you that you never saw the news attempt to sell us Donald Trump like he was morally upstanding or a decent human. But when Joe says something bigoted or ogles someone's little kid, CNN says, isn't this refreshing? Biden's like a mix of JFK and FDR with all the finer parts of Harry Truman. Christ, I know that they don't think that we're the brightest, but at least pretend we got a couple lumens. Ask yourself if you have ever questioned what they fed you, or do you just shut your eyes and then consume it? And now ask yourself if you ate every one of Biden's lies under guise of harm reduction and the promise of a slight improvement. And now imagine long ago that Biden chose to show you who he really was by traumatizing you for his amusement. Now imagine that you watched him touch a Bible with those filthy hands, and then assume the power of the highest seat in all the land, of knowing your attacker wields a global coalition born of three-letter agencies who'll make a life's mission out of trying to discredit you through lies, damn lies, and collusion. Big tech is never gonna separate from our surveillance state. Fuck's sakes, they're just a breath away from total fusion. So there will come a time where even if you see the light, your voice will never reach the sky through all the bots and all the noise pollution. So trust us when we tell you that the masking of abuses is perhaps this country's oldest institution. And I know nothing nobler than facing it in honor of the truth when you know that the people holding power have been neutralizing truth since there was wet ink on the Constitution. So know that Tara's truth is something crucial to the movement. And if you see yourself a partner to the revolution, help this country see through all the baseless propaganda through the crux of Joe's illusions. And recognize that TheTaraReade gave everything she had so she could tell us what the truth is. Recognize the decent thing to do when someone bears their soul and shows their bruises is not to ask for context or offer up your own solutions. Your job is just to listen with an honest mind and put yourself on Tara's side a moment so you understand the path she chooses. That there is no instant fame worth the dragging of your name. And if that's what you think, you've a lot to learn about the kind of facts the mob can handle and the kind that it refuses. You've a lot to learn about the news and all its many uses. Guess you've yet to learn the truth the news will serve as fruit from which they've squeezed out all the juices. And We all eat the husk and just pretend it's full of nutrients and isn't really useless. But the jaws of our ability to yield accountability are absolutely toothless. So don't you kid yourself that anti-lips are being loosened. They won't ever tell us where the bodies are or show us where the proof is. It's on you to recognize the lechery our president so regularly oozes. It's on you to muster up some honesty and ask yourself how Biden won your trust, but it's America that loses. Open up your eyes and learn to recognize the bruises. Open up your eyes and learn to recognize the bruises.
You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? Now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. Why play civil when all these dead won't make you listen?
What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? Man, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me. I will pick my targets and assassinate them lyrically. I will bring a mountain to the town square, hook them to the pillory and leave them there. Hillary, I'll see you there. Hillary, I'll see you there.
You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? Now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. Why play civil when all these dead won't make you listen?
Welcome to the fantasy of rhetoric. Welcome to the last of the free speech while we can get it. And I promise you can get it. All you corporate Democrats, second wave Confederates, GOP illusionists, and neo-Nazi bureaucrats. And Stephen fucking Miller, I will see you in the aftermath. When all the laws are dust, there's just moral justice after that. And I will hunt you through the wasteland if it comes to that. So I can rub you in the dirt like a cheap human Brillo pad. I can sleep fine when our beds are burning, Stephen, but I'll turn around and run into the blaze to get my pillow back. As long as I can lay my head down, I can live with that. I can deal with a little ash. I can feel like a little of the old me burn with the bad and the rest of my past. The old world where we all live and we can't get back. The old world where you didn't give and you'd still get back. Where you could rake in 12 billion and give none back. Those days are behind us. The virus will kill.
Welcome everyone to the Politics of Survival. I'm your host, TaraReade. It's Friday the 13th. Now in some cultures, it's a bad thing. In some cultures, it's a good thing. I used to have good luck on Friday the 13th. I think everyone here knows today, it's a dark day. We're in a dark time. And I think we're all being sobered. At me, because I'm a bit campaign, but like in theory, we're all being very sobered about what's going on in Israel and Palestine. Horrific. And I want to start at the show by saying we have a special guest who's going to talk about it more in depth, but I had the privilege of being on the No to NATO Stop All Wars with George Galloway and the Workers' Party of Britain, and with Professor Reade and with Richard Medhurst and George Galloway. And it was a very in-depth discussion about what's happening in Israel, Palestine. Now, originally we were going to be talking about Ukraine and, you know, the endless wars that the US and the proxy war that US and NATO is fighting against Russia via Ukraine. But because of the dire events that have happened over the last few days, the show shifted to us talking solely about the Israel-Palestine, conflict. Now, as many of you know, I shared, well, let's just say I've made a lot of enemies this week. I have everybody mad at me. And I don't know, Reef, if you have it handy, because I didn't ask you before, so I apologize. But I did an opinion piece on RFK for RT. If you could bring that up in a minute, whenever you can. But the RFK piece was basically saying that I think he's an illusion of choice for voters. I don't think he's an actual legitimate choice. And the reason I think that is because precisely of how he came off very talking about being a peace candidate and how he's going to get us out of Ukraine, but then went all in on, bombing the shit out of Palestine and not caring about, the people in the Gaza Strip that are in an open air prison and under apartheid, in my opinion. And not caring about the fact that there's 2.1 million people, half of which are children. And, so RFK used words like unprovoked attacks when these people have been in this open air prison since 1948 with very little medicine, water, electricity, everything being limited, their travel being limited. Meanwhile, Israelis have 3 passports. And they're not allowed to leave this little strip of land that's gotten smaller and smaller and is basically an apartheid state and having their homes taken over and destroyed. And now there's been this terrorist attack by Hamas. And I don't support Hamas, who would, However, I stand with Palestinian women and children and people that are suffering in an apartheid state. So RFK came out very aggressively. So my theory around RFK was that, the Democratic establishment really wants to give the illusion of choice, just enough to make people think, oh, yeah, there's a third party kind of, sort of, but there's not. Anyway, that made a lot of people mad. A lot of people that support RFK. I met RFK. I was at the RFK memorial. I even got a personal letter from Ethel Kennedy and thanking me for my help with the memorial 25th anniversary. RFK is a lovely person. I think he's a good man. He's done great work. But in this particular case, and I'm talking about geopolitics, he is a man that is running for president. And so therefore, I'm looking at his whole platform. His daughter-in-law, CIA, his son fought for Ukraine. I just don't buy it. I think that in the end, he is the illusion of choice. And that was my opinion. Some people don't like it. Then I came out with my opinions about Palestine. A lot of people don't like it. And this is nothing new. I've been talking for years about Palestinian struggles and the way they've been subjugated. I talked really loudly about Shireen Abu Akleh, the journalist that was assassinated by Israeli forces, which has never been adjudicated. I personally know her mentor. She was supposed to come on this show before she died, but she was killed before she could come on. I mean, I've talked about my position for a long time, but apparently this came as a surprise to some people who are very angry with me about it. Sorry. I don't obviously support any kind of terrorist group, but I do support a population that is unarmed, civilian, women and children that have no access to medical care, electricity, and water, and they're dying and they're being killed, and it's a genocide, in my opinion. So we're going to talk more in depth. You all know how I feel about it, and I've gotten lots of comments about it. And some are good, some are supportive, and some people are really angry with me. Sorry about it. But right now, we are in a dangerous point. And I brought someone really interesting. There's an account online. It's very popular on Telegram and also in Twitter called DDGeopolitics. Very informative. It gives a lot of historical context. And one of the people that was doxed from that is someone who, and I'll let her go through the history, but first we're going to talk about Israel-Palestine, but her name is Sarah Bils. She was a former Navy veteran. She has a background in geopolitical analysis, and I'm really happy to have her on the show. Welcome, Sarah. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. So excited to be here, even though it is a very dark day.
Yeah, it is. I mean, because, and let's explain to the audience who may have been at work or may not know, have seen the news, what's going on. So give us an update. Actually, I've been away for 2 hours. So tell me what's going
on. In the last 2 hours, we do know that so as far as Israeli sources and the IDF are saying that the invasion, siege, I don't know what you want to call it, of Gaza is imminent. We're looking at it was 7 hours when I woke up. So maybe 4 or 5 hours, according to their timeline. Reuters lost a cameraman today. May he rest in peace. He was attacked by Israeli forces and killed. And 3 Reuters, 3 Al Jazeera reporters were injured. Reports are coming in from Gaza that the people that are trying to evacuate are under attack. So the situation is escalating very quickly. Again, I'm totally in agreement with you. I don't support Hamas as aggression, but I definitely don't support the IDF or the Israeli apartheid state. But things are very much intensifying, and Muslim leaders have called for a worldwide day of protest and solidarity. So that's still happening. I haven't heard of any violence or any incidences other than those that are occurring in Gaza. It's so chaotic. It's very hard to give a sound update because the alerts are hacked. Everything's kind of hacked and messed up, but things are really serious. They're beyond repair.
Back to something that you said about Hamas. Hamas wouldn't exist if the Palestinian people weren't in an open air prison, right? They wouldn't exist. I've been hearing a lot is people trying to conflate them with ISIS. There is no similarity to ISIS, and I want to make that very clear. This is a very different type of group. And the conflation is being done by Western media purposefully to try to create this horrendous enemy, like the 40 beheaded babies that didn't exist, and it was AI, other stuff. So that's propaganda. And in fact, I really want to call it war porn. And I feel like, I don't know how you feel, Sarah, but do you feel like, because you're running a site with 10 other people help you with the site? Is that true?
Yes. So
do you feel like people are just getting addicted to war porn? Almost like it's like up the ante with the violence?
It's really interesting because I'm not a very big, I use the term war porn too. I'm not a very big war porn person. I don't even like to watch equipment getting blown up, but I think that was a very large trend with the Ukrainian war because we were seeing pretty much combatants on combatants. It's much more, I think you're much more removed from it, unfortunately, when it's soldier versus soldier. But now that we're getting into Palestine, it's very different because we're talking about unarmed civilians. I'm not seeing that kind of like rah war fervor from the people that I've been documenting the Ukrainian war with. I am seeing it, however, here in the West. They're ready.
Lindsey Graham is ready.
Oh, they are more than ready. They're not even just ready.
Graham's ready to bomb everyone.
He wants to bomb Iran. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like this little tyrant.
I don't know if you saw my tweet, but that was the other thing that was controversial. I put out a tweet and I said, look, this isn't what you think. Like, America's sending these fighter jets through these carriers to the Mediterranean Sea because they're trying to get position to get closer to Russia because of the proxy war. 1, 2, they want a hot war with Iran. And I think that within 2 weeks, we're going to be in a hot war with Iran. And that's my prediction. Because They want, I think that's what they want, that second front. They want it in their minds, in the Warhawks' minds, they want to weaken Iran's and Russia's relationship. That's by having them occupied with this second front. What is your thought?
I definitely agree. And I've deployed on a carrier before. A lot of people are asking, where are they going to get the weapons? They gave them all to Ukraine. No. Those were not our stockpiles for our military. Those were reserve stocks. They're fully locked and loaded. Putting 2 carriers out off of the coast of Gaza is a very large statement. Those are 2 floating US air bases on the sea, fully locked and loaded with weapons. And I agree, because the situation for Russia in that region is very it's a balancing act. So by forcing this sort of conflict, you're going to force Russia to at least make a choice or somehow insert itself, and it could be damaging to that relationship with Iran. You brought up something I didn't think of, was positioning those carriers close to Ukraine. Now that Ukraine isn't getting their jets, now that Ukraine doesn't have much,
right? Because I think if they floated over there, I'd be like, hey, Russia would be like, hey, wait a second, you've got fighter jets, right? But this is like, oh no, we're helping Israel, right?
I didn't even think of that, because they are very close in that proximity. When we do carrier deployments, we usually keep one in the Gulf, which is near the the Gulf states, and then we keep one in 7th Fleet, which is the China Sea. Carriers nowadays don't often hang out in the Mediterranean. They can, but they don't often. So to put 2 there is pretty unprecedented. I served for 13 years and I've never seen 2 in the Med at once.
And I've been telling everyone this, and I'm going to say it here. I believe we are heading towards a world conflict. And I
100.
think all Egypt, Syria, whether Egypt likes it or not, Syria and Saudi Arabia. And I think what's happening, I've said this, by spring, the US was going to try to take Crimea because they're idiots, and they're going to try to, and then that's going to be the final straw for Russia, right? Because that's off limits. So I think it's all about finding the red lines. And unfortunately, what we can't predict, and I want to, you have been a Navy veteran, so you can speak to this because you were in the Navy, I think 13 years, is that correct?
Yep, 13, lucky 13, a very unlucky 13.
Yeah. And I want to get to that, but I wanted to ask you, I mean, what is your opinion? Do you think that military strategy wise, this is what we're looking at? They're trying to position themselves to handle these 2 fronts.
I agree, but I am of this mind that we cannot handle those 2 fronts. Absolutely not. We have a humongous intelligence blind spot when it comes to Iran. We have a smaller intelligence blind spot when it comes to China, and another very large intelligence blind spot when it comes to.
Why do we have an intelligence blind spot? What is?
Well, Iran has successfully isolated itself from the West, which they should have. We've always had a very large blind spot with Beijing, but that's recently decreased because we've created them into the monster, so we have to have a better intelligence, and we've never had good intelligence on North Korea. I remember when Shoigu went there for the military expo, and we saw pictures of their weapons, and people were like, they have those, and it was like, yes, they're like a developing nation, they have technology. So I don't think, and I also don't think that from a geopolitical even just the political relationships, America doesn't understand these relationships. They don't understand the historical relationship between North Korea and Syria. Those 2 are exceptionally close. They don't understand the newly resurgence in a relationship between Syria and China. So these are all things that they're doing. Assad was supposed to fall in 2011 with the Arab Spring, and he never did. This is an unfinished job for the United States. I know you remember 7 countries, or was it 7 countries in 5 years we're going to topple, Syria being one of them. They never finished that job. This is them finishing that job.
I see. Now I detect a bit of an accent, but I can't place it.
I've lived in many places. I've lived in Bahrain for a little bit. I lived in Japan for a little bit.
Were you a child? Where did you grow up?
Mostly here. I mostly went to school here. Yeah.
In the Pacific Northwest?
No. I was on the East Coast.
East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's talk about you for a minute, because you have an interesting background. Being a veteran, talk a little bit about what led you into the Navy? And did you work for intelligence?
No, I did not ever work for intelligence. That's a very common misconception.
Okay,
Yeah, everybody says,
why are people thinking that you worked for
well,
intelligence?
because I think that they thought, okay, so I went into the Navy to pay my student loans. It's nothing about patriotism or loving America or wanting to go fight people. It was to pay my student loans and to get healthcare, which is why the majority of people join the armed forces, to be frank. I served for 13 years. It became a guilt-ridden evolution probably in 2016 when I started to when you gain rank in the military, you get to start to see how the sausage is made, what they spend money on, what they do with the money, and you're just like, I can't even believe the conflicts that they deliberately provoke, stuff like that. And you're just, if you're a human, if you have any ounce of humanity and you serve that long, there something inside you has to say like, this is wrong. 100%, especially now in these modern times, we're not in a conflict needing posture. You become to the realization that we are just a military economy and that we need wars and conflicts to continue to keep our economy going. And that's really sickening. I became very disenchanted around 2016, 2017, started toying with the idea of getting out. Around COVID, things started to take a really dark turn in my personal life and my professional life. The Navy sort of abandoned me in a way. When asking for help, they were kind of like, you need to do it on your own. You need to buck up kind of thing. And I was lucky enough to get to retire.
So you retired, but
yeah,
you were going through dark times. So did something happen?
Well, COVID happened, and then my marriage fell apart for reasons, and that was kind of all going on, and my mental health was in the trash, and instead of helping me, they deployed me, which doesn't really help. So I eventually finally said, I went and I got my PTSD diagnosis, which I didn't even know that I had. And when you have PTSD, you automatically go under review for continuing service. And I asked, pretty much, I was like, I think I'm done here. I think I don't think I can do it anymore. And I was retired for PTSD and physical injuries that I sustained while I was in the military. So yeah.
I'm sorry. So that must have been tough. So you're on the road to recovery. So you retire, you get yourself kind of on this road to recovery. And then how did you put together what you're doing now? Like, how did that happen? And
I started. Oh, sorry.
Around you about it.
So yeah, that's myth. There is a very large myth. There's many myths. One is that I'm SBU. I'm also FSB. I've served in Wagner at one point, and I'm also CIA, FBI. So I'm all of those things in one.
What happened? Why do people think that?
Because the DDGeopolitics started off at the start of the SMO. We became together organically as a team. I'm the only one in the United States. Everybody else lives in Europe or Russia, South America, and Africa. Oh, and Australia. We have them on every continent. But we went through the whole war. The reason why I did not want to reveal my identity is for obvious reasons. The danger of it, which we now know is very real. And I was in the Navy at the time, so I didn't really know how that would work. So after I retired, I just kind of continued on out of my own safety and the safety of my family to be anonymous. In April of this year, a random person on the internet gave one of my admin the infamous NATO documents, who then posted them on the Telegram channel.
And now let's take the audience members that might not know. Okay, the person that exposed those documents was imprisoned, and what's his name?
Tehera, but I can't, maybe his first name is Alex, I believe. I don't know this person. I think that people thought she was in the military, he was in the military. They must have done this together, kind of thing. And I'm like, I don't know him. He's in the Air Force. I served in the Navy, and I'm not in the Navy anymore. He was an intelligence officer with a top secret clearance.
Okay, but how did a top secret intelligence officer get you documents, and how did that happen?
They never came to me. Somebody, an anonymous, we get anonymous tips a lot on our Telegram channel, especially. Somebody came into the chat and said, I have these documents from NATO. Would you like to see them? One of our more inexperienced admins said, sure. Looked at them and then posted them with a caption that was like, I don't know if these are real or not. These were just sent to me, blah, 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 blah. And it just exploded. It went insane. I had the FBI at my door. And to this day, I've never even read the documents because I never wanted to really be involved. But I've had the FBI at my door. I lost my job, which was a very good job. I lost custody of my daughter. They
up there. Why would you lose custody of your daughter?
Because the media reported that I had changed my name, which I have not. My name is still Sarah. They said that I was armed and dangerous, which I am not. I don't have any guns in my home. They inferred that I was going to kidnap my daughter and run away to Russia, which is, as you know, pretty impossible. So my ex, and understandably so, freaked out. And I mean, I get it, because he's seeing all these media reports, and I'm kind of I went dark when it all happened because I couldn't deal with it mentally. And so, we had to revise our parenting plan. And I mean, we can go back and revise it again, but yeah, I definitely temporarily lost custody.
Your daughter is now?
How old? I'm sorry?
How old is your daughter now?
11. She's 11.
That's hard. That's really tough. So you have your daughter's custody back though, right?
Soon. Yeah. And the FBI stopped harassing me in July. So that's the last time I heard.
Were they coming to your house? Were they going through your things?
They came to my house a few times. Yes. They first, when they realized that I had nothing to do with the documents, they started to want to go through my bank accounts. Who have you given money to? How have you gotten money? But I haven't given money to any entity that was sanctioned or marked as a terrorist entity or anything like that. I showed them all of our receipts for our charity work. I showed them my bank account. They've looked at my crypto accounts, everything. And I think that a couple people have said to me, if you're not in jail, you must be working for them. But I was like, I don't know how to tell you that the easiest answer is the answer. I'm not in prison because I didn't do anything wrong. Like, I've just been reporting on the news. So there's a huge, humongous mythology about me because of that. It's like, if you didn't go to prison, then you must have flipped. And it's just,
how do you deal with that day to day? How do you deal with that mythology?
I mean, it sucks because it's used to discredit you. But I just,
I went through the same thing, but I mean, not that, but the FBI was very interested in me for a long time.
No, you don't say.
And then John Kirby did a press conference about me twice. So yeah, telling me how safe it was for me to go home. So,
oh my God. See,
yeah, my lawyer called me and said it's not safe for me to go home, and I'm like,
yeah, everything they say, please do the opposite, and we all know that here. We all know.
Yeah. So, but what I would say about that is that, So the FBI, I know when I was hassled, it was more, well, I had to meet with them in person at one point, and my lawyer was on the line, but then they didn't do a raid though, like they have done with other people. So I think that they use different tactics. So do you feel like they took the heat off of you because they discovered that these, documents were obviously not, you were just sort of publishing them, sort of like Julian Assange did when he published documents, but that you were just the publisher, but you had no idea. Do you think that's what happened? What do you think got the heat off you?
I was also very honest with them. I mean, Scott Ritter, I take a lot of advice from Scott Ritter because he's also a vet and kind of also stuck here. And he was like, always said throughout the whole thing, as long as you don't do anything illegal, then what are they going to do to you? And so when they did come to my house, I was just honest. And I was like, this is what it is. I showed them everything. And they were like, oh, okay. And that was pretty much.
That didn't work for me, Sarah.
Like, no.
I was really honest, and they still wanted to put me in prison. So
well, they asked me for a lot of information that I really didn't have. Like they were like, "Could you get us in touch with the GRU?" And I'm like, "I don't know anybody in the GRU." Like they really think that we're in this like network of spies and like FSB agents. And I'm like, I don't know them. And they're like, when was the last time you talked to someone in the Russian military? I was like, I don't talk to the Russian military regularly. Like, it's silly. They even had their own mythology, like their own idea of what this was, that making it much bigger than it is. I think everybody.
Yes, I understand. I mean, I get those calls all the time because I'm in Moscow. People are saying, how many times has the FSB approached you? And I said, 0.
Yeah.
He said, but you got asylum. And I'm like, I went through a process of asylum and a bunch of paperwork in a boring administrative office, but there was no FSB. Like that happens behind the scenes. You never meet them. You never talk to them unless you've done something wrong, I would assume. Right. But like, I never have had anyone approach me. It's so interesting how they do have this mythology in the US intelligence community about what goes on. Right.
It's just that they're even propagandized. Like they really think that they're like these evil Russians that like even to this day, it's like they're Russian funded. We are not Russian funded. We're not paid by anybody besides our monetization. We're not forced to do it by anybody. I think that's part of the thing that also is a Western thing. They don't understand doing the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing. So you must be getting paid, because they would never do it if they weren't getting paid.
Right. No, so you're in a safe place on the West Coast, and you are very moving forward with your life now. So now, how did explain to me this, okay? Because this is one of the mythologies around this thing. There was like one Donbass, or I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, Donbass Devushka, yeah.
You were posing as someone else. So explain that. Why did you lie about it? What happened? Like,
well, this is honestly, I really didn't lie. It was something that people kind of gap filled. I never revealed my location ever. They lied and said she was in Donbass. Why would I say I was in Donbass if I was nowhere near it? If I couldn't produce any raw footage or if I couldn't produce anything. So that was something that they gap filled. A lot of the stuff that like was just made up. The reason why I started to get to disguise my voice and stuff was because I was starting to be doxxed around August of last year. So that's when I started to try to assume some other identity that would kind of throw them off my scent in a way.
And so discover that was a bad idea.
When I was doxxed, yeah. By then it was like, okay, now I don't have to be someone else. But at that point it was almost a relief because it was like, now I can just be me and not worry about people trying to figure out who I am, if that makes sense.
So when you say you were doxxed, the NAFO trolls, and I assume that the Ukrainian NAFO trolls, we call them NAFO, NAFO, for those listeners who may not know who they are. They tend to go after pro-Russian accounts and try to dox and whatever and threaten. Like in my case, I've been called every name under the book, and also I've been put on the Ukrainian kill list.
Oh, congrats!
Yeah. Yeah. Welcome to the club, right? So my question to you is, being doxxed is dangerous sometimes. I mean, for me, I got death threats like when I was doxxed.
100%.
And then New York Times doxxed me. They printed my social security number on the website and then took it down, but like it was there.
Yeah.
For a while, 2 hours. That's really bad, just so you know. And
yeah.
Bad. And that's caused a lot of problems in my life. But I want to say being doxxed is not fun. I had people trying to come to my house, trying to take my pets, trying to hurt my daughter. Like, it's been very hard. How have you dealt with that doxing?
It was one of the hardest things I've ever been through in my life. The death threats were bad. I had deep fake pornography made of me. I had there were accounts made in the name of my daughter. My car was stolen. Street screens were ripped off my home. And then people ask you, why did you lie about who you were? Do you see now why? Do you see now why people would lie about who they are, try to make an effort to remain anonymous? My daughter's address was doxed. Thankfully they've moved since then, but like just very sick things. Just I'm probably not as bad as you experienced, but and once I became like a very good clickbait item, they don't stop. They do something, they do an article about me about once a week or once every 2 weeks now. The same Ukrainian trolls, yeah.
Okay. So now moving forward, how did you pull together 10 people, and what is DDGeopolitics? Change the name, you rebranded it. What is it? Is its function?
Really, we're just reporting. We came together organically, really, through Twitter and Telegram. We've been together, most of us, the core group has been together the entire time since the beginning of the SMO, with a few minor additions later. I think at this point we're just we at first we were trying to bring the truth out there, or like at least give the opposite view as an English speaking source, because most of the sources that are lean towards Russia are Russian speaking. So we decided to be a good English speaking source, and then it just kind of developed from there, because we got admin from other locations that have different concerns that were like, we want to talk about Africa. Okay, let's talk about Africa. So now we talk about everything, but it's become more, and since we did all that charity work, I think it's very much leans towards like a voice for the oppressed in a way, or we kind of like report on that often. We always try to make sure we incorporate the global South and Africa, stay away from Western stuff. At least that's my own vision. Trying to break this Russian propaganda, or like the idea of Russian propaganda, that like trying to break these very strange core ideas that exist in the Western sphere. We've lost a lot in order to do it. We've lost revenue streams, we've lost accounts, we've lost so many things. But I think that when you, and you could probably attest to the fact that when you're being attacked like that, you know that you're doing the right thing. So depending on who's doing the attacking, you're like, I guess I'm doing something right. So
yeah, I mean, I've had a tough week, I tell you that. I mean, I have people that I really care about that are really pissed off at me right now. So I just, you know, like, but I'm a geopolitical analyst, and I look, you know, and I'm a writer, and I write things that piss people off sometimes, and I'm sorry about it, but yeah.
Well, when you're an analyst, a lot of times I mean, we're both emotional people, we have feelings, but when you're doing it in a geopolitical analyzation sort of way, you have to take emotion out of it. Now we're in this
and you're pulling back and looking at the very big picture. So that's how I came to the conclusion that, oh yeah, there's Israel-Palestine happening, but what this is about is the gas reserves off the Gaza Strip and the Iran, and they want a hot war with Iran because they want to weaken
right
minds.
But
they're not going to do, but that's what they think. They think by going and they can do that and weaken that alliance. And the Arab alliance, which is churning into opposite world right now, right? So when I looked at it, I was pulling all the way back, like as if you were looking at the globe, you know what I mean? And but people don't see it that way, so they're kind of
and every conflict for Americans especially, we have to have a bad guy and a good guy, and that has to be shown to us.
Yes.
So and for this one, this is an easy one. I mean,
yeah, we live in a world where many things are true at once, right? And that sometimes the good guys are the bad guys, and the good guys and the bad guy, and it's all merging, right? But one thing is very clear: the military industrial complex is making a killing, and you can just look at the stock market and see who's benefiting from this conflict right now and the escalation. And it's Raytheon, Lockheed Martin. It's all the usual suspects, right?
Exactly. I mean, that was the news the second day, was the stocks went shoot right up, right? The second day of after the Hamas attack. So there's another thing. And people don't want to believe that there's multiple like features and multiple bugs and multiple like like advantages happening and all at the same time. It's not a black and white thing. It's not about saving Israel and saving the Jews from Muslim annihilation. It's so much, it's not that at all. Like, and people, but that's how the dichotomy is here. So if you don't want to save the Jews and put boots on the ground, you're just a Nazi again, and you're going to be complicit in another Holocaust. Now think about how emotionally charged that is. Nobody wants to be complicit in another. We said never again. So never again. So for somebody that doesn't have a geopolitical or background or even just basic geography, might be ready to say, let's put boots on the ground to save Israel. And you're like, whoa. Like that's a quagmire. Like that's you got to stop and take a step back. And we're so emotionally charged here right now. They're telling people don't wear Jewish symbols outside. They're
trying to make it seem like there's going to be a terrorist attack. Is that what's
Yes, correct. They have been telling people there will be multiple terrorist attacks in major cities. I have not heard of any.
Day and I know, and you know what, I even kind of fell for it because I was worried because I don't know, we all worry, right? But I worry about major cities and worry about my family and of course, right? But like what is your thought now on going forward? We're a few hours away from Israel being imminently going into Gaza. Is there any hope that Egypt will open its borders? Is there anyone talking about having a ceasefire peace talks? Any signs of that or no?
You know who's talking about having ceasefire peace talks? It's Putin. You know that. Of course it's Putin, pragmatic Putin. Always the pragmatic, always the level-headed Putin. He did make a statement. His statements were great. And Putin is a very between the lines person. And he definitely said that the siege of Gaza is just like the siege of Leningrad. You put two and two together. Who sieged Leningrad? Okay. Yeah. Who is besieging Palestine? All right.
Vladimir Putin made it clear a couple of days ago that he feels like the United States is responsible for some of the.
Yep. And that's something that he was very clear about in his language. So Putin did an excellent job. I think Turkey, as usual, volunteered to give peace talks, but who wants Turkey giving peace talks? We've already seen how that went with Russia. Egypt Egypt tried to open that border crossing. Israel bombed it. So they can't really get out. So Egypt is very fearful. They've left the crossing open, but they've advised people don't go through it. Like they're bombing it. So these people don't really have anywhere to go. They can't leave from the north crossing because then they'll be crossing into Israel. It's not connected to Syria or Lebanon. So they have nowhere to go. This is like extinction level event type of stuff. We're on they are planning on doing ethnic cleansing in the Gaza Strip, and they're not hiding it. I'm just not sure why we're all okay. Not we.
Why are we watching it? Why standing by watching it? What is happening with Jordan? I saw Jordan broke through the barriers. That's the last I saw.
That was Jordanians a lot of them are Palestinian refugees. It's important to note. Jordan's government leans westward very much so. It's still a monarchy. It's King Abdullah. So the government and the people are kind of in a clash. It didn't appear to be anything violent, but the government saying like no, and the people are saying we're crossing this border. In Lebanon, they've already expressed their solidarity. I mean, I don't really think that the West is understanding where this is going to go. When somebody in the Arab world, when a leader in the Arab world calls for solidarity, that means they all march. I mean, we've seen marches in Yemen, Iraq, Iran, Malaysia, Pakistan, like all over the Middle East and South Asia, and Syria, and these people are ready to go. I think that people mistake it for inherent hatred, and instead of correctly identifying it as enough is enough. We're looking at a besieged population who has been abused by the West for 75 years, and they're saying enough is enough. And that's a normal reaction. That's a normal blowback, I think. I don't think that this should be unexpected or we should be horrified by this, because nobody's been horrified for the last 75 years.
Do you think this is an escalation into a world conflict?
100%. I have been saying for the last 2 years, we are in World War III, even while we were just in Ukraine. because I said they're like, oh no, it's just a conflict between Russia and Ukraine. I'm like, no, this is a battlefront in World War III. If you guys don't understand that, World War III is not, I mean, even Mark Twain said it. World War III is not going to be fought just in the wartime theater. It's fought economically, it's fought online, it's fought in the information sphere, it's fought culturally, it's fought on all of these different fronts now. And people don't realize that they are also in it. This is just another battlefront. This is probably the battlefront, but this is another battlefront. And you know, people, I'm a realist. I'm not a war hawk, but I'm definitely a realist. And sometimes war is necessary. And I'm not 100% sure if that it's necessary in this case, but something needs to give to break up the unipolarity and the hegemony of the West. So how do you do that without violence is my question.
All right, so let's move forward. So we're looking at, in the next few hours, 2.1 million population that's down a few thousand due to the bombings, that were ordered to leave within 24 hours, and that's impossible. And now we're coming up on 4 hours left. Nobody's really significantly left. 1 million of the population is children. So what are they going to do when Israeli goes in? Do they mean going in through the tunnels? Do they mean coming in through the conventional war? Do they mean coming in and carpet bombing again?
I think that it could be a multimedia attack. As far as I've seen, there's tanks and soldiers staged at the Gaza border, and there are Israeli F-16s in the air. It's not a very smart place to do an air campaign and then a ground campaign. It'll be like going through the rubble of Iraq, and there'll be massacred because it's just going to be urban guerrilla warfare. I'm not an expert on the tunnels under Gaza. I know that they exist. I'm not sure how that Israel would be able to use them to besiege the city or the strip. The most important thing is to understand that they basically divided the Gaza Strip in half and then told the North. So about 1 million people are up here, 1 million people are down here. And they told the North to go to the South. And as the North started evacuating to the South, Israel attacked them. So we're looking at just a population that's absolutely trapped. We've also heard the majority of them say, we don't want to leave. And people will say, oh, why don't they want to leave? Hamas is keeping them there as hostages. They've already expressed that they don't want to leave because they know that if they leave, they can't come back. They'll be completely ethnically cleansed from the region. They will lose their entire homeland. It'll be gone. And Egypt has said that too. Egypt has expressed that they told them, stand by, stand fast. And people are taking that as Egypt has no sympathy for their Muslim brothers. Why won't Egypt open the crossing? No, because they know that if they leave the Gaza Strip, and you talked about the oil reserves off the coast, that's gone. All of it's gone. All of it's gone. Yeah, the LNG off the coast, all of that will be gone, and it'll belong to Israel and the West.
Okay. Not a very happy picture. Hey, Reef, if you're online there, do we have any questions or comments for Sarah?
Yeah, I've got one. How do you feel BRICS's response will be to this overall? You know, there's a lot of countries in that group, not all sympathetic. You know, how do you think that goes?
Algeria has already expressed, well, Algeria is not a BRICS state yet, but Algeria has already expressed solidarity with the Palestinians. As far as the Easterners go, I think that the hardest one is going to be India. India is going to have to make a choice eventually. They love Israel inexplicably, but we have those three powers: China, Russia, India. Those are our BRICS. That's a BRICS trifecta. And we have Russia and China basically stating in less words that they are on the side of the Palestinians in terms of the civilians. But India has not made a statement yet. We're also talking about, other than India, we're talking about global South countries that always will express solidarity in a struggle for liberation and a struggle for independence. So the African nations have already expressed their solidarity. I apologize for that, siren. Their solidarity with Palestine. South Africa had their protest marches today. I don't know what BRICS can do as an economic bloc. They're not a military bloc. So I guess they can provide support, monetary support. I'm not really sure. They don't really speak as a political bloc. They do things
Right.
economically. So
next question. Can you speak to how Hamas started? There's a lot of talk about Hamas right now. We might want to cover that.
We were trying to say, you know how the Western media is trying to conflate ISIS with Hamas, which I think is it really needs to be emphasized that they are nothing alike.
No, the only thing they have in common is they were both created by the West. So Hamas was created by Israel and the United States because they needed to have a formidable enemy in Palestine. But this excuse that because Hamas exists is the reason why Israel bombs Gaza makes no sense, because Israel was bombing Gaza before Hamas existed. Israel did create and fund Hamas. And then in 2006, I believe that's when their last election was, they did elect Hamas, not by an overwhelming majority. I think it was 46% to the 43% of Fatah. They haven't been allowed to have a political election since. So why does Israel, how does it benefit Israel to keep Hamas in office? Not to say that the Palestinians wouldn't continuously vote them back in, but why does Israel make it certain that they stay in power? Now, more recently, Hamas has gone out of their way to normalize relations with other nations in the Levant. They have not historically gotten along with Bashar al-Assad, but recently they have started normalizing that relationship. That is not good for Israel, because Israel likes to have that two-front kind of pronged attack on Syria, which they do with ISIS in the north. ISIS is also sponsored by Israel in Syria. And they have themselves to the south. So watching Hamas normalize relations with the Bashar al-Assad government is not good for Israel. Mm-hmm. So that's another facet of this sort of conflict is Hamas and Gaza starting to reach out and do more in terms of their own foreign policy, establishing themselves as kind of, there's a lot of nations that recognize them as a state, but now they're trying to establish themselves in the geopolitical sphere. We know that Hamas has met with various world leaders, including Putin, and the president of Palestine is slated to meet with Putin. So this legitimization by large world powers is very detrimental to Israel. They don't want other nations to legitimize Hamas because that's the wedge that they use to continue to attack Gaza.
I liked your analysis about what's been going on and updating us, and I really appreciate that. I wanted to take a second, Reef, if you could you throw up the website for DDGeopolitics? You work with some of my dear friends. There you have it. So find that, and they can find you on Twitter and find that website. So you work with some dear friends of mine, and they lift your work up and share it. And I think that's great that we're all trying to help one another, because right now we're in a space where, like, for instance, I'll do a tweet and it gets suppressed. Mm-hmm. To you, it get lifted, or vice versa,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's important because since we can't be in the actual theater yet, maybe soon, we have to do what we can in the information wars to get at least these people's voices out there. So yeah, it's important. We saw Elon doing a fantastic job with the Russia-Ukraine war when he took it over, but this is just madness what's going on right now.
I mean, okay, Elon Musk though gave to you. I'm sorry, I'm going to call this out, but Musk gave Starlink to Ukraine. So
I'm just talking about on X. Forget the Starlink thing. We could go down that road if you want. I was just arguing with someone on X about Starlink because I said, okay, Elon, if you could turn on Starlink for the fascists in Ukraine, why can't you turn it on for Gaza?
Yeah, exactly.
So
why don't these people matter? Exactly. That is the question. And do you think, I was having a conversation with a friend about this. Do you think that there is partly, and I know the MAGA right doesn't like to hear this because they associate it with cancel culture, but let's talk about it because it's true that there is, particularly in the United States and Great Britain, there is a systemic racism against Arabs.
Oh my God, yes.
And xenophobia and of course, a phobia about the Muslim religion in general. I mean, what is your thoughts on that? 'Cause you
Um,
are in the West Coast of the
Yeah,
United States.
I'm on the West Coast. We don't have a very large Arab population here. Well, I would say that the most racism against Arabs would be in Europe. That's how people, uneducated people understand things, is that it's just an invasion and they want our jobs and they want our money and they don't understand what blowback is, or how they can kind of, not that they're the cause of it, or or civilians in the EU should feel guilty, but to have an understanding of why these people are coming. But we don't get to have that understanding because we are never taught what our governments really do overseas. So it just becomes like, oh, these guys are fleeing these shitholes that they made into shitholes, and now we're responsible for them. And it's like, no, that's not it. But that's where a lot of the racism comes from. We're not reminded that we live cushy lives. We live lives of luxury at the behest of people of the Middle East and the global South. So when they come here, I feel nothing about it. I'm like, well, that's shitty that they had to leave their homeland, but this is where they're going to go. This is the worst amount of Arabic racism that I have seen since 9/11. This is worse than 9/11. I have never seen anything like this. And the Israeli lobby in this country, I'm probably going to get canceled and demonetized, but it is so strong and so ingrained in our government. And you brought up the MAGA, right, people, but they were very anti-Ukraine war,
Right.
and rightfully so, right? We're ready to go to war with Israel. MAGA right is ready to go to war with Israel. The left.
And why are they ready to go to war with Israel or China? It's like, and the same thing with the right, well, of course, and then there's Lindsey Graham, who wants to, in fact,
Everyone.
Babylon B, I should tweet. They said, Lindsey Graham announces we should bomb every country in the world. Really, honestly, like when he gets on TV, let's bomb the shit out of him. Like, and you're like, dude, you're a grandpa. Let's give you medicine and put you to bed. Like, what is he doing?
And you're like, have you not been watching the Russia-Ukraine war? Ukraine became a testing ground for Iranian weapons too.
It's making money.
Yeah, but I mean, the Ukrainian war was a testing ground for the new Iranian drone program. And if we all watched those drones, and they were cheap, shitty drones, we watched those drones annihilate targets in Ukraine. And those drones have been tweaked and upgraded and updated, and all of those bugs have been fixed. And that drone program is the best drone program in the world. Does Lindsey Graham not know that? Like, Iran has a drone carrier. Iran has a formidable military with very advanced technology. I don't think that these people realize what they're getting into. This is not Iraq.
I don't think we're in the fuck around, find out phase.
Yes.
Right now.
This is not Afghanistan. This is not Iraq. This will not be like that. And Iraq was incredibly tough. That was a quagmire that we were stuck in, and many people got rich, and Iraq is still broken. But this is not Iraq, and it will be absolute carnage for the United States military.
Well, you have the Arab, states uniting. You have there's a unification right now that's happening.
I think that people forget about that. They forget, they don't even remember that Yemen exists and how wronged they've been by the West.
Yemen's been believing me.
Yeah.
I mean, and basically, because when we've talked about Yemen, it's about the amount of starving children and their infrastructure being decimated by the West. So the conversation has been around that rather than the fact that they've been building, their own military.
Yep. The Houthis have already said it. They said, if you even think about marching into Gaza, we will start attacking bases in Africa. Like, everybody is ready to go. The only people still standing with America right now is the UAE and maybe Bahrain, the smaller Gulf states with the money. Everybody else is with Palestine. I don't think that people realize the gravity of this. We're talking about billions of Muslims that are ready to go to Palestine. This is not a joke. This is not jihad or terrorism. This is literally a revolution. This is a liberation movement. No matter how you want to slice it, that is what they look at it as, a revolution and a liberation movement. So we're talking about a Muslim population around the world that has been downtrodden, rejected, and hurt by the West. So, I mean, why wouldn't you want revenge? You just mentioned Yemen. Yemen has been besieged for decades. We support a family in Yemen. That's actually one of our projects that we have adopted and support a family in Yemen. And there's nothing that they can even do to get money. We have to just give them money to get their water and fuel and food. And people forget, and they don't forget. And I said to him the day that it started, I said, how do you feel? You know, what are you thinking? And he said, they don't know what it's like to come up against a population that has nothing else left to lose. And when you have nothing else left to lose, then you're willing to die to make it stop.
It's true. That's absolutely true. Well said. So Sarah, I wanted our audience to hear, we have a couple minutes left. Could you please tell the audience where they can find you and your work and the other people that you work with?
Please find me on Twitter. I run spaces probably every day, trying to just get people in the conversation. So please find me on X. It's just at DD_Geopolitics, Telegram, DDGeopolitics, Substack, DDGeopolitics. But the best thing to do is just to go to DDGeopolitics.com. And then it just lists all of our platforms right there. And that way you can choose which ones you want to explore.
All right. Well, very cool conversation. I
loved it.
and I liked having you on the show. It was great. You know, I'm glad that you're getting sorted. Now, do you feel like you're sorted? Your life has gotten, the FBI has kind of backed off, and you feel like things are a little calmer down, and except for, I mean, what's happening in the world, but like
they're calmer. But I can't get a job because as soon as they Google me, it's just Wall Street Journal articles.
I went through that. I was called a security risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know somebody called me and I was just like a regular job. And somebody said, I'm sorry, but you're a security risk.
Yeah. I mean, I have 3 degrees. There's no reason why I shouldn't be able to get a job. And I have applied over 200 positions and I can't get a job. I've been rejected from master's degree programs after they found out that they Googled me or whatever. Now I'm like, I should have changed my name, but
well, you still can. There's still an opportunity. Yeah. But like I hope things sort for you, and I hope that you're able to simply make your platform independent, and perhaps people can support DD Geopolitics there and then help you.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be fantastic. You can interact with me on Twitter and I can take Elon's money, or you can donate to me directly at ddgeopolitics.com. But most of our donations don't go to me. They go to Yemen, honestly. We have to support a group of adults and children. So
I see. Well, that's really good that you do that. And people can find out more about that program if they contact you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And we'll have you on again. Thank you so much for always being the amazing producer that you are. I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
To all the fam out there. All the fam out there, it's getting colder in Moscow, Russia. So I've got to go shopping for a coat this week. I'll let you know how that goes. I didn't have any culinary adventures to share with you all today. Sorry. Usually I have like something I ordered that I don't know what it is. So we'll do that.
That's next. Actually really fun.
Yeah, it is a fun game. Tara order this week. Anyway, but I'm trying to learn Russian and I'll get there.
Oh, dobre utro.
Dobre večer.
There you go.
All right. So everyone have a good one. We'll see you next week. We have some great guests coming on the show. Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll talk soon. Have a good night.
Peace, everybody. Let's try to find peace. Take care. All right.